Hello, everyone. This is Tetrafolium, and I'm here today to talk about my favorite Pokemon of all time, any generation, and especially so in Generation 3, Jirachi. Specifically, we're going to be talking about one of Jirachi's sets. There's a little bit of a hint for you in the title of this video. Let's see if you can figure it out, if you're smart or if you're knowledgeable about the tier. Do I have to explain why Jirachi's my favorite? No, I mean, look how cute it is. It's awesome. And it's really awesome in ADV for the competitive perspective. Right now, it is sitting 8th on the viability rankings in the A2 tier. And I think that there's plenty of argument that you might even put it above Gengar and Zapdos, depending on what you value in the tier. Although you could also make the argument that Pokemon such as Dugtrio, Salamence, maybe even Suicune are better than it, depending on what you're saying. But I think it's pretty unambiguously a top 12 Pokemon in the tier. I don't think most people would argue it's worse than that. It's not quite DPP where it's I don't know where it is exactly on the viability rankings, but I feel like it's somewhere in the top 5, and it's usually toward in the top like 1 or 2. But my DPP ignorance notwithstanding, let's get the comment question for the video. Which Pokemon do you think is the cutest? I mean, I'm obviously very biased here. I like who's another Pokemon that I think is good? I mean, Clefairy's cool. I like its little moon dance idea. Not Van Morrison moon dance, but the little dance that it does in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. It's kind of cool. All right, let's talk about sweepers, breakers, and cleaners as sort of offensive categories of Pokemon. A sweeper I'm defining as an offensive Pokemon that facilitates its own ability to beat multiple opposing Pokemon. So, examples of which would be like your Tyranitar with Dragon Dance. It makes sure that it's faster than almost everything else. It's got enough bulk to take a hit or two, which will allow it to beat down on a lot of Pokemon. And depending on what all your opponent has, like the Tyranitar might just be able to beat their entire team, or at least the rest of it, at a certain point. Especially if it can get to +2 attack, +2 speed, then it's like really, really over. Suicune is a Pokemon that we'll be talking a lot about in the not too distant future, but its ability to use Calm Mind and leverage its fantastic defenses make it very, very potent as a potential sweeper. It can certainly set up on a lot of Pokemon and then just take out a large chunk of your opponent's team. And Snorlax is similarly, like Suicune, going to leverage a boosting move in Curse, rest for longevity, and then smash through a team with really, really high offensive prowess. Breakers. So breakers are offensive Pokemon that threaten large damage to opposing defensive pieces. They're used to soften up the opposition for teammates, and in addition, you may hear this concept of trading a lot. These Pokemon are usually down to trade their HP and or their entire lives to do a lot of damage to one particular key target, or maybe in order to secure a kill on a particular key target. Choice Banded Metagross is probably the archetypal dictionary definition of a breaker. It throws out huge meteor mashes. It's down to take a hit in order to do so. And it would love nothing more than to just explode and remove something from the field. There are a lot of teams where Metagross's explosion, taking out something like a Skarmory or a Suicune or even like a Blissey, something that is usually not very easy to take out in one shot from anything else, will just facilitate a win from there. But there are some other sort of breaking concepts that we will talk about as well. Breloom, for example, it does have really high attack like Metagross and can do a lot of damage, but Spore, putting something to sleep, trading your Suicune, or sorry, your Breloom to do something like that is oftentimes worth it, and sleep is sort of like getting broken for, because a Pokemon that cannot wake up is not going to be able to contribute and is going to be a little bit easier to beat down on. Moltres does have a really high special attack stat and can break for sure, but I think it's actually a little bit more in the role of a breaker due to its access to the move Roar, and we'll maybe discuss that in greater detail on a future slide. Cleaners. So these are offensive Pokemon that usually leverage their superior speed to threaten to finish off the weakened opposition in the late game. So Aerodactyl and Jolteon are like two of the really, really common examples of this. They have the fastest natural speed in the tier, except for Electrode and Ninjask, but those are fairly niche Pokemon. If you want to know a little bit more about Ninjask in particular, you could watch my video that I did on it. Regardless, these two are oftentimes going to be the fastest Pokemon in a game, at least from neutral. So if you can beat down the Pokemon that they cannot quite one-shot, at least to the point that they can now one-shot it, you can simply just win the game by outspeeding them and locking into one move. In the case of Aerodactyl, preferably you'd like Double Edge, but Rock Slide, Earthquake, whatever. In the case of Jolteon, you don't necessarily have to lock into one specific move, but if you can just make it so that everything dives to Thunderbolt, well, like, you're gonna win. Salamence is there. So Salamence, in particular, I'm thinking about Dragon Dance Salamence. Usually with 1 DD, Salamence is now the fastest thing in the format. Well, you know, as compared to neutral speed Pokemon, right? And with that +1 attack is able to finish off a lot of potential threat in the late game. You know, Zapdos is usually not going to survive a +1 Rock Slide unless it has a lot of HP investment. And if you can get some chip damage on it, then even if it does have HP investment, then it's kind of over for the Zapdos. Lots of things do not want to take that +1 HP Flying Stab, nor do they want to take the coverage Earthquake or Brick Break. Whatever moves you have on your Salamence, they can certainly clean up a game. Now, that being said, there are definitely sets that Salamence could run that where it functions less like a cleaner and more like a breaker. Like, for example, its Choice Band set. It's just going to do big damage to key targets and then die. It may also function as a breaker with its mixed set, where it is intending to force some key Pokemon to switch in and then trade into that. Or it could even function as a cleaner on the mixed set as well, depending on what the team you're up against and whether or not they can manage a late game Salamence. But that segues us into the question that you might be asking. Can there be overlap in the offensive categories? So whether a Pokemon is designated as a sweeper, breaker, or cleaner can be dependent on the set that that Pokemon is running and also the context in which the game is being played. So let's take a look at how different sets lend to different playstyles. Metagross is probably the easiest example here. This top Metagross set here, the Choice Band, is certainly a breaker. Its goal is to lure in defensive pieces like Skarmory or Suicune and then trade for massive damage, and then just wants to explode to remove a wall. Whereas Agility Metagross is more like a cleaner. It wants to find a speed boost opportunity versus a weak attacker and then leverage the superior speed to earn fast KOs. In particular, if you've managed to defeat Pokemon such as Swampert and Skarmory, who make it difficult for Metagross to earn easy 1/2 hit KOs with Meteor Mash and Earthquake, you can get that agility off and just clean up against your opponent's team. Oftentimes, Agility Metagross does run Explosion. Sometimes it drops Explosion for Rock Slide, but there are definitely some issues with that. You're not as happy to commit to exploding with your Agility Metagross, but depending on the context of the game, maybe you do want to do that so that you can break a Pokemon that's otherwise difficult for your team to get through, like, say, a Zapdos or a Suicune or Moltres, which is going to segue very well into the next example here. So that might also be an example of how the context may shift how you are going to use your Pokemon. But let's talk more specifically about Moltres here. So Moltres, high special attack, of course. Very solid in terms of its damage output, especially when you can spam the fire type moves. But more specifically, let's take a look at a matchup into this particular team. So this is V5 with two waters, Suicune and Milotic. I'm not a huge fan of this particular style of V5, but it's one that exists and one that has some merit depending on, you know, what you're anticipating to face. I want you to look at this matchup and think, what is Moltres supposed to do here? Is it supposed to break, sweep, or clean? All right, the answer is break. You might think about this and say, like, well, like, Moltres doesn't really do anything, right? Because Suicune, Milotic, and Blissey are all very difficult for Moltres to really make any progress against. But the idea with Moltres versus this style of team, it, you know, of course, depends on what your team is, but oftentimes you are running spikes with Moltres. You're going to come in on the Skarmory, and then you're going to try to roar around all the switch-ins while the spikes are up for your side of the field. So, you know, Skarmory does not want to stay in versus Moltres and eat a Fire Blast. It has to switch. But if it switches to, say, Blissey, Milotic, or Suicune, all those Pokemon are going to take spikes damage. And then you're going to roar them out, and they're going to end up into a different Pokemon, in which case it could be one of Suicune, Milotic, or Blissey that did not come in. They will be taking some spikes damage as well. And then you have to decide what you're going to do with your Moltres from there. You're probably going to switch. Or if you roar in, say, like the Dugtrio or the Claydol, possibly you could decide to trade into those. I don't know if I would necessarily do that versus the Dugtrio, because if it has Rock Slide, that could be really, really bad for you. But on this particular team, it's not very likely, actually, that Dugtrio would have Rock Slide. It's often dropping it for, like, Sunny Day to clear the weather, or Screech to help deal with opposing Suicune. So you could even just attack into those. In the case of Claydol, you may be trading out your Moltres, but that's fine if you're losing your Moltres for the Claydol, because that's going to allow you to set all the layers up, and then you can win the game just by spikes damage. But if you get Skarmory back in, you can kind of loop this idea where you can continually get spikes chipped, racked up on your opponent. And an ideal goal here is that you would weaken Blissey so that one of your electric types, that being Zapdos or Jolteon, can win the game. Yeah, I mean, Raikou exists as well, but the problem is Raikou gets a kill and then gets revenged by Dugtrio. That might be enough in some contexts. Say you have like a DD Salamence, and we've sufficiently broken the waters such that a +1 Hidden Power Flying can kill them. Dugtrio gives you the opportunity to get that +1 basically for free, at least when Salamence is revenging it. So, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of complicated sequencing that I'm talking about there, and it's a little bit nebulous when we don't know what exactly we're running with our Moltres, but I hope that that sort of scenario and versus this particular team, that I've given you something to think about at the very least. And if you have any more questions, please let me know in the comments. But let's take a look at another example here. So this team, obviously, there's some similarities, right? You still have Skarmory, Suicune, Dugtrio, and Claydol, but we've swapped out the Blissey and the Milotic for Jirachi and Celebi. Think about how things have changed here, and think about what you might want your Moltres to be doing in this matchup. Is it going to be sweeping, cleaning, or breaking? All right, I'm saying this is a cleaner. Now, sometimes the distinction between cleaner and sweeper is like more semantics than like functional. But the idea here is that Moltres is a huge threat to all of Skarmory, Jirachi, and Celebi. Dugtrio cannot switch in on it, and Claydol would not like to switch in on it either. So it can find itself in a position where it's outspeeding almost the entire team. In fact, I think you do outspeed this entire team except for Dugtrio, because I don't think that the Jirachi and Celebi are running Moltres speed. If they are, then some things might change, but we'll go with the conceit that they are not. The idea here is that once you KO that Suicune, or at least weaken it to the point where HP Grass will finish it off, Moltres basically outspeeds and KOs this entire team. Jirachi has to have a lot of special defense investment to not die to a Fire Blast, similar to Celebi. Claydol, yes, can live a Fire Blast, but you can always just switch out. And I think that's kind of where I would say that there's a difference between a cleaner and a sweeper. The sweeper is not supposed to switch out. It's supposed to just set up, keep itself alive, or like kill whatever's in front of it. Whereas a cleaner is gonna do some more hit and run style tactics where, you know, if that Claydol comes in and you are not killing it with the next move, you will switch your Moltres out, and then you'll get it back in on something that can't beat it, like, say, Skarmory, and now Claydol is not really going to be able to counter your Moltres, because if it takes another hit, it's going to die to the follow-up. So that's sort of the difference in why I would consider this to be a cleaner in this sort of matchup rather than a a sweeper. You could, in theory, play to break the Suicune and set up for a different Pokemon on your team to win. Say if you have Mixments as well as Moltres. You know, Mixments kind of does a similar sort of thing. Now, it's not as consistent at killing Jirachi and Celebi, but as long as they've taken some like amount of Spikes chip, or like, you know, say they're sitting around 50 to 60%, then your Salamence can also perform that sort of role as a cleaner. So That may be a sort of difference depending on what your team is, but like I would say for most Moltres teams, you're probably going to be cleaning up against a team like this. Yeah. Now let's talk about Calm Mind and maybe how it might facilitate one of these offensive Pokemon. Calm Mind was introduced in Generation 3 as a setup move that increases your special attack and special defense by 1 stage each. I mean, it's a little bit of a far cry from Amnesia in Generation 1, which increases your special stat, i.e. your special attack and defense, by 2 stages, which is kind of ridiculous, and if such a move existed in ADV, then that it would just be broken. Frankly, Calm Mind is kind of broken. The combination of high defense stats, healing, and Calm Mind are key traits that a lot of the staple Pokemon of the format like to take advantage of. So, here's the list of examples here that we'll be examining throughout the rest of this video. Suicune is a Pokemon that has a great defensive type. Mono Water is, in ADV, particularly great because it's only weak to special attacks, those being Grass and Electric. And in the case of Grass, the strongest Grass type move that you are typically going to have to contend with is Hidden Power Grass, which is only 70 base power. And there are not very many Grass types in the tier. Celebi is one of them, and it's frankly the only OU viable one of them. I mean, yeah, you could use Sceptile, you could use Venusaur, but those are a lot more rare. So you're not often going to have to take a stab Grass move as Suicune. Electric is a little bit more threatening, but if you only have to worry about electric types, I think you're doing really, really well as a Pokemon. 100 HP, 115 in both defense and special defense is frankly an absurd defensive profile. That is some of the best mixed bulk that the tier has to offer. I think the only Pokemon that is arguably better than that is Registeel. But, I mean, you could even make the argument that having 100 HP as a stat is just even better than Registeel's superior physical and special defense. And then the combination of Rest plus Pressure makes Suicune an extremely survivable Pokemon. Now, Rest on its own is probably good enough because Suicune is very commonly sitting outside of 3-hit KO range from a lot of Pokemon. But the addition of Pressure makes it so that a lot of Pokemon have a pretty short window for finding a critical hit to break the Suicune. So let's take, for example, Gengar. Gengar's best move for hitting Suicune is Thunderbolt, which has 24 PP. Because of Pressure, effectively, Gengar's Thunderbolt only has 12 PP, so long as it's attacking the Suicune. So Gengar has only 12 chances to get a critical hit on the Suicune after it's started setting up its Calm Minds in order to break it to stop it from being able to rest loop. Now, if you only have to get 1 crit out of 12 chances, the odds, I believe, are only very slightly out of your favor. I think it's something like I think it's at least a 46% chance that you do get 1 critical hit out of 12. But that's the thing, is like Suicune's not the only Pokemon that Gengar might be clicking Thunderbolt into. If you can get the Gengar to spend a couple Thunderbolts before the Suicune's in, then you reduce its chances to find that critical hit on Suicune by a good amount. Say we end up in a situation where Gengar only has, say, 18 Thunderbolts. It's only going to be able to click 9. Then, I mean, you are quite favored as the Suicune to dodge the critical hits and completely defeat the Gengar, because, you know, once that Gengar's out of Thunderbolts, it doesn't really have any options for breaking Suicune. I guess maybe Explosion, but that's not by itself. Celebi. Celebi has a decent profile of 100, 100, 100 across the board. You'll definitely take that. There are not that many Pokemon that have better splits than that. But access to Recover is really what makes Celebi tick as a Pokemon. Recover has 32 PP in this generation, so that's 32 times that you get to get half of your health back anytime that you want it. So, I mean, how can you even complain about that? Like, that's great. But to bolster its survivability, you also have access to Leech Seed. Now, Recover, Leech Seed, Calm Mind is a very rare set in modern ADV, but it does technically exist. And if you find the right matchup for it, then this is a completely unkillable monster. So keep that in mind. One of the things that can slow down, in theory, these Calm Mind sweeps is status moves like Thunder Wave or Toxic. Celebi does not have a way to continue to Calm Mind up and then sweep through its status, but it does have Natural Cure, meaning it can switch out, get rid of its status, and as long as you can break the Pokemon that is afflicting Celebi with the status, then Celebi can go back to sweeping with Calm Mind, which is phenomenal. I think Celebi is, like, pretty much... If it didn't have such a awkward defensive type, Celebi might be just broken. Imagine Celebi, but, like, it didn't get hit by super effective moves. Like, it would be kind of a menace, wouldn't it? Speaking of a menace, here's Blissey, who has a whopping 255 base HP, literally, like, the highest that can be programmed into the game, assuming that they're doing, what is it, the 8 integer thing. You know, I'm not a computer scientist, but I know that 256 is a bit number. It's a base of 2, so somebody explain it in better words than I can here. And 130 in the special defense stat is just, that's crazy. You're not dying to any special attacks virtually ever. But only 10 defense, which is not fantastic, but Blissey still makes do. And you'd be surprised at how little Blissey can take from certain physical attacks. Comment down below what you think Blissey would take from an unboosted Metagross Meteor Mash, and I'm going to tell you that it is oftentimes less than half. So that's kind of crazy. You have Soft Boiled and Wish as healing moves. Soft Boiled is great. It's just like Recover, except it's only got 16 PP. However, because Blissey has a phenomenal HP pool and does not take literally any damage on the special side, it can oftentimes get away with not having to click quite as many Recovers as Celebi might have to. Though it does make it a little bit more difficult to PP stall a opponent out of all of their moves that are threatening to kill the Blissey. You know, say like Earthquake has just as much PP as Soft Boiled does, so you might have to spend all of your Soft Boileds to stop a foe who has an Earthquake that is capable of 2-hit KOing your Blissey, or close to capable of 2-hit KOing your Blissey, like, say, for example, Dugtrio. Depending on the Dugtrio set, depending on the Blissey set as well. And similarly, we have Natural Cure with the Blissey, so we can do the same sort of thing that Celebi does, where it can switch out, cure the Toxic off of itself, and then come back in and start sweeping again. Let me find some more music while we're at it. But I will also mention here that while we do have Wish as an option, that's not really like real on a Calm Mind Blissey. Calm Mind Blissey is pretty much always going to run Calm Mind and Soft Boiled. Well, I mean, of course, if you don't have Calm Mind, you're not a Calm Mind Blissey. But Soft Boiled is virtually required on every Blissey set. There's not really a Blissey set that exists that is better off for not having Soft Boiled. Just having that survivability, giving you more turns to do stuff with your Blissey, it just makes a lot of sense to run that move. Which means you only have 2 move slots. So if you're going to commit one of them to Wish, then you only have 1 attacking move with your Blissey. And Blissey is not able to pick one move that just hits virtually everything. Suicune can kind of get away with that with Surf, right? Because it's got 24 PP, it's stab, and water hits a lot of things. But Blissey's best like mono clicking move would be Ice Beam, which it does not get stab on. It only has 16 PP, and if a Pokemon is able to come in and resist the Ice Beam and run that Blissey out of moves, then, or I should say run it out of moves quickly, then you really don't have any other options there. So oftentimes Blissey is going to be running 2 attacking moves, and generally it's going to be Ice Beam and Thunderbolt. Gives you plenty of clicks to win a game. So yeah, I mean, I'm not here to like tell you what you can and can't run. If you want to try Wish on your Calm Mind Blissey, let me know how it goes. But I'm gonna say that I don't think it's gonna be better than the typical Blissey set in most cases. And then finally, Jirachi here. Great defensive type. Psychic plus Steel covers a lot in this generation. You're only weak to Ground and Fire, which are 2 of the more common coverage types. So it's not fantastic in that regard. But look at all the resistances that Steel has, and then take away, that fighting weakness. Cannot really complain about that. I'm sorry about all my yawning. I need to drink some freaking coffee or something. You have the same defensive splits in your stats as Celebi does, 100s across the board, which is great. And then Wish as well to keep yourself alive if you want to run that sort of Jirachi set. And we'll get a little bit more granular here with how we can use Calm Mind to accomplish certain offensive goals. The first one that I'm looking at here is breaking with Calm Mind. So since Calm Mind gives an immediate special attack boost, we can leverage it for quick pressure early into a game. So the quintessential Calm Mind breaker in the format is offensive Suicune. With max investment and a really, really strong Hydro Pump with Stab is really, really difficult to switch into, especially if you're leading with a Pokemon that does not handle Suicune very well. Like, say, for example, Tyranitar. Tyranitar, doesn't want to take that Hydro Pump. It's going to have to switch out in a lot of cases, which means that you can Calm Mind. You will be taking no damage because your opponent switched. And then you can click a +1 stab boosted, fully invested Hydro Pump into whatever your opponent has to offer here. You could, in theory, run Surf instead. That reduces your breaking power quite a bit, though, because Hydro Pump has a lot more base power than Surf does. So it will leave Pokemon a lot lower when it hits them, even if it doesn't quite outright kill them, which allows for your teammates in the back to manage to get kills. Ice Beam coverage is really nice because it handles Salamence, which is a Pokemon that otherwise would be able to switch into a Hydro Pump decently well. And then the last moves there are able to help with breaking in different ways. Roar is going to be able to stop other phasers from getting rid of your Calm Mind stacks with the Suicune. So it kind of is beating some of the counterplay that might exist for the Suicune. Like, let's say, for example, your opponent goes to Skarmory, and you're in a situation where you're like, well, if I can get to +2 with my Suicune, then I can really bust this game wide open. And my opponent recognizes that, so they're going to go for Roar, because Skarmory will often live a +1 Hydro Pump. So you can get your fast Roar out. Skarmory is gone. If they end up into a Pokemon that can't really touch your Suicune, you get that second Calm Mind, and now you've just really busted the game wide open. There are other applications for Roar. You could do the same sort of thing that Moltres does, where you can Roar the Pokemon that would switch into Suicune very well around so that they're taking spikes damage. So Blissey, Milotic, other Suicune, they're all not loving to just rack up that spikes damage. And if you're able to sneak in some Calm Mind boost there, you might be able to put them in range of your Hydro Pump. Hidden Power Grass is a more direct option for beating the water types that would often like to switch into your water ice coverage. It also gives you a very consistent kill on Swampert, should that come in. Although, if Swampert is your Suicune answer, you're kind of in trouble. So, keep that in mind, I guess. Toxic is another form of breaking that I don't think that we often talk about too much, because we think about Toxic usually being on defensive Pokemon. But if you're able to Toxic something like, say, a Zapdos that switches in, which might be something that could live an Ice Beam and threaten your Suicune otherwise, well, now you're chipping that Suicune down, and it's not able to... Or sorry, you're chipping that Zapdos down with the poison damage, and you're not able to use that Zapdos to be an effective Suicune switch-in for much longer. Or if you have another Pokemon on your team that can't really take Zapdos on very well, the Zapdos is on a timer. It's not going to be around for the entirety of the game. So as long as you can force that Zapdos to basically die to toxic damage, or yeah, it's really, really bad for that Zapdos. Of course, other Pokemon don't want to take a Toxic either, and it covers a lot of switch-ins quite nicely. So, solid move for offensive Suicune. And then Rest is the last option. That's kind of more to hybridize your Suicune so that it can perform the sweeping role as well in some matchups. Say if your opponent does not have a solid phaser that's able to remove your Suicune from the field and reset its Calm Mind stacks, then you can just kind of rest. As long as your opponent doesn't have anything that really breaks through the Suicune, you can wake back up and get back to breaking, or I guess in this case, sweeping. So Rest maybe not so common on a breaking style offensive Suicune, which is what offensive Suicune is usually doing, so I would maybe discount Rest just a little bit, at least for the context that we're talking about this Pokemon here. So let's take an example of this team, which is Blue Offense. Technically, I think this sample runs slightly different HP and speed investment, but for the most part, it's the same sort of thing that we're talking about here. It's that Calm Mind, Hydro, Ice Beam, punch holes early on in the game so that we can win with our Salamence slash like Heracross in the late game. In particular, what do you think that the Suicune is trying to lure in? I mean, there are a couple things, but Zapdos is the one that comes to mind for me. So you want that Zapdos to come in on the Suicune, take big damage so that your Heracross, Metagross, Salamence can click big buttons to win the game in the mid game. Now let's take a look at Celebi. You'll notice that I'm not using a Smogon sample set here. I'm instead using a spread that is on one of the teams in my builder here. This should look familiar to some of you who are more familiar with modern ADV offense ideas. This is the Celebi that is often used on Slop, which is, I guess, a mixed attacking offense team built by Fredazi, or at least credited to Fredazi. I know that Giraffe is really the shadow puppeteer behind all offense teams that have ever been built in ADV. But this is Calm Mind, Psychic, Giga Drain, HP Fire. The idea with this Celebi is kind of similar to the Suicune, where it wants to lure Pokemon in as it goes for those Calm Minds and then trade damage into them so that the rest of your team can simply just win the game. So this is the team that I am thinking of when I see this Celebi set. This is Slop here. I think I did a video on it, actually. If you want to go check out, I believe it was my Endeavor Swampert video. You'll see what this team's all about. But what Pokemon are you trying to lure in and deal big damage to, even if it's trading your Celebi to do so? That's right, it's Zapdos. It just all comes back to Zapdos. We want to kill Zapdos. But, I mean, there's some other Pokemon that would be nice to get as well. Moltres, you would love to hit that. I believe that the Celebi has the speed to outspeed Moltres, so you can get that Calm Mind off as they switch into Moltres, and then Psychic twice as you might live a Flamethrower. I don't know if you'll live a Fire Blast at +1. Hard to say, but yeah, that might be able to open up the game for you as well. Now let's take a look at the sweeping here. Ignore that at the bottom. Those EVs, they don't exist. It'll make more sense, I guess, when I slide this other picture in. But Calm Mind is also boosting your special defense, so Pokemon that have reliable recovery can leverage the defense boost to act as win conditions against teams that no longer have solid breakers. So, first one that comes to my mind here is Blissey. Calm Mind Blissey is more at least in my opinion, a Pokemon that is used out of necessity rather than as a Pokemon that is being built around for a win condition. Out of all the Calm Minders, Blissey has like the lowest offensive capability. It's only a 75 base special attack Pokemon, so it doesn't really do a ton of damage, even when it gets to fully invested, or sorry, fully boosted. But that being said, you're still a Pokemon with maximized special attack, clicking Ice Beam or Thunderbolt. Yes, you do see those move options for Flamethrower and HP Grass. That is technically a set that can be used, but I find that almost every team prefers to have Ice Beam. Thunderbolt. Bolt Beam coverage is kind of unbeaten in ADV in particular. But, you know, the concept still stands, regardless of what moves you're clicking. So, but yeah, Blissey, obviously very survivable, obviously capable of setting up Calm Minds on a lot of different Pokemon, and should it get to maxed out, it's able to beat down on the opponents, even if you don't quite one-shot them. If you're two-shotting them, you're going to kill them a lot faster than they're going to be able to kill you, because your Blissey was soft-boiled. Suicune is probably like everybody's like platonic ideal of a sweeper in the format. It's really, really difficult to kill Suicune because it's got such high HP and defense, and then you use Calm Mind to bolster your special defense, and then you're basically unkillable. So Suicune can kind of get away with just Surf, as I kind of mentioned before, Stab and Water being a type that is very difficult to find, like, to slot an immunity in for one. Only so many Pokemon have Water Absorb, and they're not all Pokemon that can really fit on any team. Additionally, there are not too many Pokemon that can resist Surf either. Grass is a very underrepresented type, and Water, while it a little bit more represented, is it's pretty easy to tech your team to have Water type counters. Because the Water Pokemon are quite similar in their sort of defensive and offensive capabilities. Maybe Starmie is a little bit of an exception to that, but you can deal with Suicune and Milotic sometimes the same way. Like, you know, you have a Zapdos with high special attack and Thunderbolt. Kind of does the same thing whether you're a Suicune or a Milo or a Vaporeon. And then Rest is really what makes this set tick, because you can get your HP back. Oftentimes you're not getting 3-hit KO'd by opponents. Sometimes you might not even get 4-hit KO'd, in which case you can really just run it up, get all the Calm Minds up, and then beat your opponent that way. Roar, great for stopping opposing phasers, also great for stopping Pokemon that do have the capability of beating you. Like, say, for example, Zapdos. If it comes in as you Calm Mind, you can roar that Zapdos out, Calm Mind again, and then it can't 3-hit KO you anymore in a lot of cases. So that could be a way to win a game with your last Mon Suicune, or against a roarless Zapdos, should you ever find yourself in that situation. Zetz has a good clip of this in one of his replay of the weeks, courtesy of Vapakuno. It was a cool one. But you could replace Roar with Ice Beam or Sleep Talk as well. Both of those moves are quite strong and help Suicune out immensely in certain matchups. In particular, Ice Beam very good for hitting Salamence. I mentioned that before. But Sleep Talk is really good for keeping pressure up against certain teams, especially teams that don't have a solid phaser that can take a boosted Surf. So yeah, really, really nice. And then last we have this Celebi set here. I really messed up the formatting here, because this Celebi has some very strange EVs and I wanted to fit it on the screen, but you're just gonna have to play along with it there, or just don't even bother. I mean, you still have your phone in your pocket. You're still playing a game on your first monitor, so you're not really watching the video portion of this. So, it doesn't really matter that much. That's my coping for this. This is a very uncommon set in modern ADV, this defensive Calm Mind Celebi, but as we kind of mentioned before, you have access to Leech Seed and Recover, which makes you extraordinarily survivable. So if you can Calm Mind up to max and then, facilitate that by like a continuous stream of recovery, it doesn't really matter what your last and only attacking move is. You can break through a lot of things. Now, Psychic is the move that's chosen here. That can be really tough if your opponent has a Tyranitar or a Metagross or a Jirachi that is unable to be beaten by the rest of your team. So that's why this set is kind of limited in its capabilities. But you could also replace that Psychic with, say, like Hidden Power Grass. And that is oftentimes pretty good at sweeping through a team. Now, you'll have to get creative when you're trying to remove things like Skarmory. Jirachi's still a little bit of an issue. Moltres, Salamence, those could still be issues as well. But at the very least, you don't have to worry about a straight-up immunity that is virtually unbreakable with the defensive Calm Mind variant that he's using Psychic. But yeah, this is like the most extreme example of a survivable sweeper that you could have in the format. But let's talk about my favorite guy here, Jirachi. We have two sets here that really get the sweeping aspect of a Calm Mind sweeper down very well. Wish Calm Mind, you're going to use Wish, obviously, to increase your survivability and your longevity. Calm Mind, of course, to bolster your stats here. That's what we've all been talking about. I don't need to explain that again. And then you can pick any of these moves here. Really, any combination of them. Other than like Thunderbolt, Fire Punch. That doesn't really make that much sense. But one of Ice Punch or Psychic to help you out with Salamence, as well as other flyers that, or I should say, Pokemon that don't mind taking electric/fire coverage. Ice and Psychic kind of cover a lot. Then you could also, pick one of these electric or fire type moves to help you with the steel types that manage to slow down the Ice Punch/Psychic coverage. And when I say you can pick like any combination of these moves that are on here, I really mean it. I have used Psychic Thunder before on this set to some tournament success, so it really is very customizable. The advantage to a set like this is versus these Pokemon here, these defensive Waters and Blissey, who are usually trying to beat down the Jirachi like death by 1,000 cuts. They're going to go for their admittedly not that strong Surfs just to apply a little bit of damage to that Jirachi and then wall the Jirachi out, and then they'll win in the long run. In the case of Suicune, maybe even like phasing the Jirachi out. But Blissey, the 100% example of what Wish Calm Mind is trying to beat. It gets the Thunder Wave off, which is not fantastic, but it's going to be seismic tossing from there. It takes 5 seismic tosses to kill the Jirachi, but if you can get that Wish off at any point, you can allow yourself to survive 2 to 3 more seismic tosses per Wish that you get off. So basically, Blissey is going to be completely unable to beat this Jirachi one-on-one unless it gets 10 million full paralyses in a row, which is, not impossible, but not that likely. So, yeah, you boost up to +6 with the Jirachi, and then eventually you'll get a Psychic Spadef drop, which will super duper own the Blissey, or a Thunder Paralysis, and if Blissey ever gets full parried when it needs to soft boiled, you'll beat it, or a Fire Punch Burn, which could put it in range of 2 Psychics, or you could even get an Ice Punch Freeze. Like literally any of these moves, if you click them enough times, could give you a win versus the Blissey in the long run, and you give yourself a lot of chances to do so. So you're very likely to win that 1v1. And then against Calm Mind Blissey as well, you are decently likely to beat it in the long run, as long as you don't get crit a bunch of times. I think that Jirachi can live a +6 crit from Blissey, from its Thunderbolt. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to check that one out. Maybe that could be an argument for running some special defense, though. For this set in particular, that could make some sense. But having that really high defense synergizes very well with Calm Mind, which boosts your special defense in all the other cases where you're not all that worried about getting crit. It also means like Pokemon like Tyranitar and Dugtrio, who would threaten you with really strong earthquakes, are not necessarily going to be able to kill you in one shot very easily. So that can give you a turn to handle them. Like if you're, say, really high in your Calm Mind stacks, you can get that Thunder off on the Tyranitar, or you could Ice Punch and kill a Dugtrio, for example. We also have Substitute Calm Mind as an option here. So same sort of concept as the Wish Calm Mind variant, but we're using Substitute instead of Wish. Now, that doesn't sound very good for your survivability, right? You're doing damage to yourself to create the substitute, but you're using the fact that you can create 101 HP substitutes to beat down these seismic tossers. So both Registeel and Blissey have difficulties beating Jirachi one-on-one if the Jirachi has laid down a substitute or gotten a Calm Mind up. The sequence that is exactly what you would love to see as the Jirachi is that you Calm Mind as one of these two Pokemon switch in, and then you set a substitute as they go for Thunder Wave. That gives you plenty of turns to get a bunch of stacks up, and then you can start going for your Ice Punch to try to get a freeze on them, or your Thunderbolt to try to get a paralysis of your own on them, or Psychic into Blissey to get special defense drops. Force that Blissey to switch. You're getting chip healing from your leftovers. You're able to get more Calm Minds up. If you can get to +6 with a substitute up in front of you, then Blissey is in huge trouble. Now, you will have to invest a little bit in special attack, I think, in order to really threaten the 2-hit KO on Blissey, even at +6. It's kind of insane that that's what is required of you. But, I mean, Blissey is Blissey, so what are you going to do? This Jirachi set can be very devastating for a lot of teams, though. Especially teams where Blissey is the only Pokemon that can handle the Jirachi behind a substitute. So take, for example, your V5, right? Yeah, Dugtrio, great at removing Jirachi, but not if the Jirachi has that substitute up. And if the Blissey is broken through, literally, Milotic is not beating Jirachi behind the substitute with Calm Mind stacks. Skarmory is not going to beat the Jirachi if it's got a bunch of stacks and a super effective Thunderbolt or Fire Punch to click into it. Claydol could maybe take a hit as long as it's not like a boosted Ice Punch, but it's not going to be able to completely break the Jirachi on its own in most cases. So yeah, keep that in mind. Let's sort of continue on here. This is not going to be the set that we'll be focusing on. Neither of these is going to be the set that we'll be focusing on today. But if this video gets 100 likes, which, I mean, it can't be that hard. I get about 1,000 views per video. If a tenth of you guys could just like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, then we could do a follow-up that does a little bit more for fleshing out these sets here, because they're both very powerful and sets that I would definitely not mind using on some teams. But let's look at Calm Mind for the sake of cleaning. So Calm Mind decreases the threshold for which you need to kind of break the opponents for, so that you can clean up and remove all of the Pokemon. It allows for a little bit of safety when boosting against the low HP special attackers as well. So say like I don't know, you're up against, say, a Charizard with your Suicune, and the Charizard is going to die to a Surf. But you know that the Charizard can't really, like, threaten to kill you with HP Grass, because your Suicune's got a lot of HP investment. So you can eat an HP Grass to get a Calm Mind stack up, and then kill that Charizard. Maybe you would have already killed it, but you're going to use the fact that it can't do much damage to you to get one Calm Mind up, and then you are now like cleaning up through the team where there was something in the back that did did survive a neutral Surf, but would have died to a +1 Surf. Sorry if that was a little bit meandering there, but I hope you followed through with me on that one. So here's a offensive Celebi set. This is quite similar to the one we looked at in the breaking category, but this is a little bit more weighted towards the speed and special attack. The idea for this set on a lot of the teams that it's on is to come in later in the game when things like the Dugtrio and the Aerodactyl and the Salamence have been removed, things that could threaten to outspeed and do a lot of damage to your Celebi. Get one Calm Mind stack up, and then use the coverage combination of Giga Drain, Psychic, and HP Fire to clean up through all the weakened foes on your opponent's team. Like, say, like, they have, like, I don't know, Swampert, a 50% Tyranitar, a 40% Skarmory, and a Starmie left on their team. You've managed to kill, I guess if this is Big Five, their Gengar and their... what else do they have? Blissey. You've killed those. That's when this set can just clean up. You will just hit, like, outspeed and basically kill everything else that is on that team. The Starmie, you know, maybe the Starmie lives one, but the idea is that with the Calm Mind boost, you are going to live their Ice Beam and Giga Drain, and then even if you don't kill, you'll kill with the follow-up Giga Drain, and you got your HP back, so they're not going to be able to kill you with the second Ice Beam. So yeah, very solid in that sort of context. Again, it depends a little bit on the team that you have it on. This could certainly still be a breaking sort of Celebi if they have a team where Celebi is not advantaged with its coverage in terms of being able to kill everything. Like, so you're not able to remove their Blissey. Well, okay, then you're just going to use the Celebi to Calm Mind up and get big damage on something so that something else on your team can win. And then here's the set that we are going to be diving deeper into with this video. I know we're an hour in and we're still not even really like talking about the set that we're going to be featuring here. Welcome to a Tetrafolium video. Superachi. You would also hear the Celebi set above called Super Celebi sometimes, but Superachi is kind of the shorthand that is stuck around. A super set is a set that is Calm Mind 3 attacks. I don't know if this terminology is all that popular anymore. Superachi is really the only one that gets talked about like this, but yeah, I mean, I think even in like DPP and Black and White, they have used this terminology before. But Superachi is pretty much always running Psychic, and then you get to choose whether you want Fire, Grass, or Bolt Beam as coverage. I do think that Fire, Grass is a little bit more common as the pair of moves here. A lot of the things that you would love to hit with Ice Punch are things that you can hit pretty well with Psychic and Fire Punch anyway. Like Psychic does good enough damage to things like Flygon and Salamence that you can kind of get away with not having Ice Punch. Now, Ice Punch is certainly more consistent because you don't have to get the +2 necessarily, but you'll still be okay in a lot of cases with just Psychic. And then Fire Punch does the same amount of damage to Celebi as Ice Punch does, so you're not missing out on that sort of matchup. And then HP Grass, great for hitting Swampert. Also, your best move as a special attacker to hit Tyranitar. So, yeah, Tyranitar is a Pokemon that Jirachi really struggles to beat in a lot of cases. But this set in particular, because you have a lot of special attack investment, can 2-hit KO some Tyranitar sets. And if you're outspeeding and 2-hit KOing, as long as you live an Earthquake or you catch them switching in with 1 HP Grass click, you are winning. You flip the entire matchup on its head, so that's quite good. Hidden Power Grass is a move that you could also use on the previous Jirachi sets that we talked about. A little bit less common, but sometimes like the combination of Electric and Grass can be quite nice for those sets, depending on what team you have. You could even do that with this Jirachi here, the Super Rachi. You could do like Thunderbolt, Ice Punch, Hidden Power Grass, and you drop the Psychic. Sometimes you miss not having Psychic. Psychic can be instrumental for stopping you from losing to Blissey, which is the Pokemon that is the most difficult to break through with the Super Rachi, because you can get like Calm Mind stacks, you could get up to even +3, but your Psychic is not doing enough damage to really like break through the Blissey. But the idea is like if you can get a early Spadef drop on the Blissey, then you might actually be able to break through it. And you know, if the Blissey has to switch and you're able to get another Calm Mind, it gets really dicey for the Blissey team. So yeah, that's the set that we're going to be examining, and we're going to be looking at a slightly different sort of EV configuration for this set. But before we get into that, Raikou, this is a Pokemon that I didn't talk about so much before. It's another really good Calm Minder in the OU tier, but it's not as survivable. It doesn't have quite as good defensive stats. It's not a quite as good defensive type as some of these other Pokemon, and it doesn't really have quite the same defensive options. Like, yes, it has Rest Pressure, which is a set that Raikou can run, but it's a little bit more niche in its applications. But this set here is quite common on Slop. It's got the Calm Mind 3 attacks. You could call it Super Raikou. And it's really good at cleaning up teams that have been sufficiently weakened. Crunch to not lose to Celebi. Thunderbolt, great stab option. And Hidden Power Grass to hit Swampert. So, yeah, I mean, really solid. You know, Grass also good for hitting certain ground types as well. What, like Dawn Fan, if you see that, there you go. But yeah, moving on to the particular Jirachi set we'll be looking at here. We're actually doing a really slow variant of Super Rachi here. We're only going down to 244 speed, which is enough to outspeed Tyranitar. Also notably enough to outspeed Endeavor Swampert, which is important because we have Hidden Power Grass, which will just one-shot that thing. And we're going to retain a lot of the special attack. We're not fully special attack invested, but we are stronger than any timid Jirachi could get to because of the modest nature. And then we're splitting the rest between our HP and defense. We'll talk a little bit about that after I mention the offensive benchmarks here. Our +1 HP grass is going to deal at least 50% to a 252 Tyranitar, which is really good because that means we're one critical hit away from OHKOing Tyranitar, but it also means that most of the time we could get that 2-hit KO. Now, if we low roll twice and the Tyranitar has leftovers, then we could be in trouble. But that's quite all right in a lot of cases. In fact, if it's something like a Pursuit Tar, which is one of the common 252 HP Tyranitar sets, we could even just get a second Calm Mind going because our boosted special defense is going to help us live the fire move that Tyranitar has. We get a guaranteed 3-hit KO on Skarmory with unboosted Fire Punch with this amount of special attack, which is really, really solid. It makes it very difficult for Skarmory to stay in and get all the spikes up. And we have a 68.8% chance to just one-shot a defensive Gengar in the sand with Psychic. So that's really, really nice. And if it's not defensive Gengar, well, that thing is dead. So that's also really nice. We do have a guaranteed OHKO on Heracross as well with a spike down. And if we don't have the spike down, then it's a 37.5%, which is, I mean, it's not perfect, but it certainly will get the job done. Now, Heracross could do some things like substitute down to swarm range and throw off a big Mega Horn on us, but thankfully we do live that thanks to our max HP investment. We don't need the defense necessarily to live that, but we would die to that if we had no HP or defense investment, so that's sort of a notable defensive benchmark. But specifically, why do we pick this breakdown? Well, it's to live a +1 EQ from Gyarados. Is that super duper important for the team that we have? I mean, kind of. As you'll see with the team, basically the only Pokemon that would like really, really beat Gyarados in a 1v1 situation, like just switching in and then still managing to win after the DD, is Skarmory. And Skarmory is susceptible to getting Magneton trapped, so being able to live Gyarados all the time with the Jirachi, at the very least, is going to give us opportunities to land big Psychics into it and put it in range of one of our Rock-type attackers. We still have pretty good odds to live things like a Jolly Dugtrio Earthquake. We'll live it, in fact, 87.5% of the time. And we'll also live a +1 Earthquake from all of Tyranitar, Salamence, and Metagross more often than we don't. We could run more defense, and in fact, a lot of Jirachi sets do recommend that you run 40 defense so that you can guarantee that you will live the Dugtrio Earthquake. And then, of course, that would make you more likely to survive the +1 Tyranitars, Salamences, and Metagrosses of the world. But I don't think that you 100% all the time need that, and we're going to kind of bank on the odds a little bit to help us out here. I will note, if you do want to survive Tyranitar all the time, you have to go to 76 defense, at least, which is a really heavy amount of investment all told. That means that we are not going to be able to have quite as much special attack, which means we're going to miss out on some of these benchmarks that are kind of cool on the offensive side. But depending on what you want from your Jirachi, what you need for your team, you have the wiggle room to do such things. Yeah. Here is the team in question here. If you are a viewer of Revival tournaments, you may recognize this team as one that Xtina used in her set against Eric. I believe it was round 1 of play-ins. It is the same 6, but I'm going to say it's probably different sets. Not literally all different sets across the board, but we're definitely using a different Tyranitar and probably using different EVs on our Jirachi. There's definitely some wiggle room you can do with this. I'll talk a little briefly about what the other Pokemon do here, but the overview here is that this is a TSS team, Toxic, Sand, and Spikes. I've sometimes called it Tyranitar, Skarmory, Swampert. I guess we don't have the Swampert, but we do have the Starmie, so that's still an S Pokemon there. Starmie, Jirachi, and Flygon are here to synergize well defensively, even though they are not running defensively oriented sets. Flygon can switch into Earthquakes for Jirachi. Jirachi can switch into, both Jirachi and Starmie can switch into Ice moves for Flygon, and Flygon could also switch into Electric moves for the Starmie. So we're kind of leveraging our resistances and immunities, despite the fact that we don't necessarily have a ton of defensively allocated EVs on these Pokemon. Jirachi's definitely got the most. Lead Tyranitar is going to set the sand early, and it's going to dissuade opposing Tyranitar from Dragon Dancing. With offense teams, a Dragon Dance Tyranitar can oftentimes be a pain in the ass, especially when one of your rock resists is Jirachi. Now, Flygon is a pretty decent rock resist, at least at forcing damage on Tyranitar, but because we're offensive Flygon, it's not that difficult for a +1 tar to find a 2-hit KO on us. So we definitely want to lead something that makes it difficult for opposing tar to get a DD. Not saying that we are always going to stay in with our tar. In this case, we have BKC tar to deal damage, but a lot of players do not want to click DD versus opposing Tyranitar turn 1, because it can go really badly for you if they say go for Focus Punch, or if they get big damage with Earthquake and then have a Pokemon that responds to your Tyranitar quite well, like Skarmory or Flygon. Skarmory is here to set the spikes. Gar is here to spin block. The Taunt plus Will-O-Wisp combination on Gengar is there to help break Blissey. If you are more Xtina pilled, you could run a slightly different Tyranitar set, which uses Substitute instead of Earthquake. It's called Viltar. And that is a very, very solid Pokemon for punishing Blissey, because you can set a Substitute. You will not lose the Substitute to any of the common moves that Blissey runs, i.e. Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and Seismic Toss. And then you can just fire off a Focus Punch that just is unblockable, really. But because I'm not running that Tyranitar set, I want a Gengar that is a little bit more tailored towards beating Blissey. We could also run Explosion on the Gengar, but the problem is if you explode and they switch that Blissey out, then it can get really dicey for our capabilities of beating said Blissey. Offensive Flygon is here to break Tyranitar for Jirachi. If we're up against a Tyranitar that does not have a significant HP investment, then Flygon Earthquake into unboosted Jirachi Hidden Power Grass will kill. But if it is something that has a little bit more HP investment, then Flygon could still put the Tyranitar in range of +1 Hidden Power Grass, which is exactly the sort of concept that we're looking for with a cleaner style Jirachi. Off Me is here to get the spikes up, and it can eviscerate physical offense structures. For this team, we have Recover over the typical Thunderbolt slot. The idea is that Between Sand, Spikes, Gengar, and Jirachi, we should be good enough into beating water types that we don't need Starmie to have Thunderbolt as well. Even so, like Thunderbolt Starmie is not a perfect counter to water types. Suicune, for example, can still give off me a lot of trouble if it gets its stacks early. So, but a lot of opponents will have to respect the Thunderbolt on Starmie if you manage to get Starmie in on a turn where it's advantageous to click Thunderbolt. So that you can use that bluff to get your recovers off, or go for your Hydro Pump instead. And then Jirachi is there to clean in the late game. That's the whole concept behind this video here. So we are going to move on to the battles, and we'll see you shortly for that. All right, we're into the battles here. I have the legendary boss battle music, this rock sort of version of the Mystery Dungeon legendary boss battle theme from Super Mystery Dungeon, which is a game that I think is underappreciated, even though it is my least favorite of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. In fact, I didn't even complete it myself. But I'm not to spread the slander on this game. It gets slandered quite enough as it is. This is, I think, the first time that you, or the first time that you hear this, I think, is in the Jirachi boss battle early in the game. And Jirachi keeps up its shtick of wanting to beat your ass when you try to wake it up. So that's really funny. But nevertheless, we'll get into the game here. So we're up against a Skarmory lead with Tyranitar. Especially with BKC-Tar, I tend to want to Focus Punch that, which will do a solid 44%. I'm going to click Rock Slide into the Skarmory in case the Skarmory should go for a Roar into my Tyranitar. Then I can get big damage on it. Potentially get a Lynch. Potentially catch a Switch Out as well. Doesn't really matter. There's arguments for going for Focus Punch again as well. I guess if they go for, what's it called? Drill Peck, that could be awkward for your Tyranitar. But they go Claydol to eat the Focus Punch, which critically hits them, unfortunate. But that gives me a free Skarmory entry. I'll get the Spike up as they switch back to Skarmory, and I'm going to Thief their Skarm, which is going to limit that Skarm's effectiveness throughout the rest of his game here. It's not going to be able to chip heal up. I'm going to get Thunderbolt onto the Skarmory, who protects. And then he's going to reveal Regice as his special wall as I get a Will-O-Wisp burn on it. That's really, really good. We'll go back to Tyranitar here. BKC-Tar quite good into Regice. Takes the Ice Beam decent enough. And it's going to threaten a kill with Rock Slide. But instead I would go for a Hidden Power Bug, trying to catch that Claydol switching in. It does good enough damage into the Metagross, though, to keep that at bay. I'm just going to get a Spike up because I have full health Skarmory versus Metagross. Why not? Even if I'm not going straight for the third layer, we have to get the second layer in order to get the third layer. So I think that's valuable progress there. Better than if I clicked Toxic, right? We'll get Tyranitar in on a critical hit Fire Punch from Gengar, which allows Gengar to just clean up my Tyranitar there. Frankly, I don't think the crit mattered for the ability to get the kill on Tyranitar, but now we're going to get Jirachi in. I think with this team that this is a Explosion Gengar that does not have Will-O-Wisp. It's like 4 Booms and a Skarmory here. So the idea is, like, between any of these 4 booms and the spikes going down, you should be able to beat Blissey. So that's why I'm okay with going to Jirachi there. A lot of times, you don't love to have Jirachi versus Gengar because Gengar can get the burn. Though, if you're going to get burned with any Jirachi set, Super Rachi's probably the least devastating because you're not trying to stay around for tons of turns to win the game. You're acting, like I said, as a cleaner. You're supposed to be on that hit and run style mode. But we are going to see this Claydol come in here. I'm going to go to Gengar to take that Earthquake. The Jirachi could still be useful at beating this team. It's faster than pretty much all the things that have been revealed, even though I'm not max speed. So that's quite good. Psychic is going to come down on my Gengar, but at the cost of an Ice Punch, which is going to destroy that Claydol. If I had Boom here, which it's possible that I could... I was testing some different Gengar sets here. Then I could have eliminated that Regice entirely, but in this case I can just play to get my 3rd spike up, as the Regice is going to Thunderbolt for 60% on my Skarmory. Opposing Skarmory is going to come in. I'm just going to Roar that, and we're going to see a Suicune. So this makes a lot of sense, all these booms to facilitate Suicune sweeping in the endgame. But I still have Starmie here, who is going to be able to take a Surf well enough. It still did quite a lot of damage. But we can Rapid Spin all these hazards away. Now my Jirachi is going to be able to come in without taking, like, hella damage. And I'm going to switch to Flygon here as the Suicune continues to Calm Mind up. We're going to get a Toxic off on the Suicune, which is going to force it to have to rest early. And if it doesn't have rest, well, then my Starmie should be able to Recover Loop it. It does have rest. Last move is possibly Sleep Talk, which could be bad, and it is. But I'm going to go to Skarmory, which gives me a chance to phase this out. If I get surfed here, I would probably just lose the game, but thankfully I don't. I'm able to get the Skarmory in, which is going to allow me to go to Jirachi, who's going to be able to Fire Punch, take a lot of the damage on this Skarmory, and I do so because I anticipated a Roar. But Starmie is here. I can Rapid Spin, get rid of these hazards, and my opponent will go for a Drill Peck and get the crit, which is going to leave me at just shy of dying to sand damage, which sucks. I will just kill this Skarmory off, though. I can't really get much value out of my Starmie defensively anymore, but I am going to go to Skarmory and Roar this Metagross out in the case that it was, or if in the event it was a Agility Metagross, which it actually seems like it probably is with Rock Slide. Although maybe it's not, maybe it's just 4 attacks. But in any case, I can continue to get these Roars. This Suicune is going to have to burn 2 more turns of sleep because of Sleep Talk mechanics in ADV. Goes for another Sleep Talk, doesn't get the Surf, so that's a turn that it still has to burn, which is really, really nasty. And I'm just going to continue to Roar with the Skarmory until we kill. Now Jirachi is here. I'm going to be able to Calm Mind up in the face of the Suicune. It's getting a Calm Mind there, which kind of stinks, but that's fine. We will make it work. We are kind of matching Calm Minds here, but I am going to just throw out the Hidden Power Grass, because if he goes for Calm Mind again, then I just win. And it's important to note that I am faster with my Jirachi than he is with his Suicune there, so yeah. And our +2 Fire Punch will certainly kill that Metagross, so that's sick nasty. As cool as that theme is, it's not a super duper long loop, so I'm gonna switch up to our standard gym leader battle music here. Shout outs to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon as a series and Super as in particular as a game, even though, like I said, don't love it. Still cool game. Yeah, and there you go. You kind of see the idea of Jirachi as a cleaner. If my music will play, what happened here? I think my internet's kind of messed up, but we're gonna continue as normal. But yeah, it didn't completely just sweep through the team. I had to switch that Jirachi out, get it back in. At which point it was advantageous to do so. So that's the sort of cleaning mechanics at play there. But let's get into the next game. We're up against ADV Test Strats using the Chuck avatar. So Zets, maybe? Probably not. Lead Tyranitar versus Metagross. Don't love this matchup. We're going to go to Skarmory. And that is a choice banded Metagross who gets a raise immediately on us. So that's fucking awesome. I'm going to Roar. And hopefully I get something that I can spike on, which is the case with the Swampert here. One of the things that's not so cool about a Thief Skarmory is switching into Metagross, especially if it gets a raise. You do not get that leftovers chip healing, which means that it can be really, really difficult for you to heal back out of range of the next one or two Meteor Mashes. So one of the downsides of Thief Skarmory for sure, but it is a really, really good set, especially if you have the right positioning for it. Unfortunately, Metagross is just a bastard Pokemon, but I am able to get my Spike down at least, and Starmie is a good enough check to Swampert here that I can probably just force this out. Hydro Pump is going to land on this specially defensive Zapdos, I think. So I'm going to have to switch out. Flygon here is going to be able to threaten this Zapdos out with a Rock Slide. I'm going to go for Substitute, though, in case he switches. But instead he goes for Toxic, which is probably best case scenario for me. I will go for Toxic of my own to catch him trying to switch out. But he goes for Hidden Power Grass. And because he is a Spadef Zapdos, that's not going to break my sub. So now, like, it's really, really dire for my opponent. He's going to take a Rock Slide here, which is going to completely own him there. Yeah, that's an unfortunate flinch, but, like, you're supposed to get that Zapdos out of here yesterday. So, yeah. But I am able to get my Toxic on this Swampert for very, very minimal drawback. I'm going to take a Earthquake on it because I think it's a Refresh Swampert. And then switch to Starmie on the Surf. So that ends up getting a good amount of chip on the Pert, which means that potentially Tyranitar can break through it at some point. Or at the very least, we keep it low enough for Jirachi to be able to get a kill on it. My opponent's going to decide to trade a lot of health on a Swampert to get a Toxic on a Natural Cure Pokemon. And I switch, which, yeah, puts him in a really bad position because Toxic obviously does nothing to Jirachi. He does have Dugtrio to switch into my Jirachi, but because I have some defensive investment there, I'm able to live, and HP Grass will get the kill. Aerodactyl's here to revenge my Jirachi, so I don't want to do that. See, in that, let's actually go back here. In this context, because the Jirachi is super duper threatening to this Swampert, which has no moves to hit it, I can allow my Jirachi to act as a sort of breaker. The idea is like, okay, I'll call Mind Up, and if Metagross comes in, I'm going to trade my Jirachi Fire Punch into the Metagross to put it in range for Starmie to be the cleaner for my team. But instead, we catch that Dugtrio, kill that, right? And I'm going to save this because it's like, okay, now Jirachi could be the cleaner. As long as I'm able to remove this Aerodactyl, Jirachi could beat the combo of Metagross and Swampert in the end game because I've got super effective coverage to hit both. So I'm going to go into Gengar here, which should cover pretty much any of the reasonable clicks into the Jirachi there. Yes, technically, he could have clicked Rock Slide, and that I think would have killed Jirachi from 13%. But why would you click the inaccurate move when you have accurate moves that could kill? So now's the time to reveal the Gengar, right? And I'm going to click Will-O-Wisp because obviously the Aerodactyl has to switch out. And then classic Gengar going to miss Will-O-Wisp as the opponent switches out. Because my opponent did not reveal an item, I'm going to assume that they are a Lumberry, so it's not really worth it for me to go for another Will-O-Wisp, but they're actually Choice Band because that Focus Punch just destroyed my Flygon. But good news for me is that I'm able to come in with Jirachi and get some chip healing here. Because you're locked into Focus Punch, I know I can just click any move to deny any damage here. And we're just going to take that. I go for Fire Punch, trying to catch Metagross coming in. But I managed to catch Aerodactyl, and I get a 20% burn chance. I didn't talk so much about Serene Grace as a ability for Jirachi in this. Many of you know what Serene Grace does, especially if you play DPP. But for those of you who don't, it doubles the chance for secondary effects to go off. So Fire Punch, a 10% chance to burn. When Jirachi uses it, it's a 20% chance. Which, yeah, I mean, it came in clutch versus this arrow. Now that the arrow is burned, it literally is completely walled by Starmie. Because I have Recover on the Starmie. But I am going to go to Gengar here, who's going to kind of own this Aerodactyl. I can just go for Will-O-Wisp, because obviously Aerodactyl's not able to touch my Gengar. It's locked into clicking Earthquake because of its Choice Band. And Will-O-Wisp will be super duper punishing to whatever Pokemon switches in. There's literally no reason for me to not click Will-O-Wisp here. If he stays in with the Aerodactyl until it dies to burn, well, then the Aerodactyl's dead. It's not like I need to save PP for anything. So, yeah. But my opponent really does not want to give me the opportunity to just Will-O-Wisp whatever the switch-in is. Now I'm going to go to Swampert, which is probably the least valuable Wisp target, and I'm not going to take damage on my Gengar to apply the burn. So let's go to Starmie, who is pretty free at beating the Swampert down. I'm going to go for Ice Beams here because I don't want to miss my pumps. Yeah. I can go for Recover here. The cool thing about this set, right, it bluffs being like your standard offensive Starmie for basically until you click Recover. So a lot of people are not really respecting that you might have Recover. So, yeah. I go for Recover there as my opponent goes for a Surf, so I guess kind of a smart play from them to call that out. I go for Hydro Pump and I miss, so that's great. And then he crits me with Surf, so yeah, I mean, awesome. But that does allow me to get Jirachi in when the Swampert is out of Torrent range, and I can get to +2 here. And yeah, now I'm just going to sweep this team. The idea being that +2 Fire Punch after Spike should kill a lead Choice Band Metagross. That's why I only bother to go to +2 there. It is very tempting to get greedy and go for like +3 or +4 or until Swampert has to switch, right? But +2 is sufficient to kill literally everything. +2 HP Grass kills Tyranitar, +2 Fire Punch kills Metagross. So if I don't take this kill on Swampert here, I'm giving him another opportunity to click Surf, and if he gets a critical hit, then I'll lose the game. So, like, yeah, I'd lose the game if he crits this one here on turn 37, or if he crits it here on turn 38. But that's 2 turns where he has to get the crit. A 2-turn window for a crit is oftentimes not going to happen, right? The odds are not in your favor for that. But if I kept Calm Minding, I increased that window for literally no upside. Like, there's no reason to continue to Calm Mind up, because I outspeed and kill everything. So it's important to know when you have hit the sufficient benchmark to kill everything, and also to know when you outspeed everything, because you can optimize your chances to win accordingly. So if this was a different Metagross set that had more HP, then I would have to get to +3 to kill it. But you know, my game knowledge tells me that this doesn't. It's not afforded the opportunity to run enough HP for it to matter. But if I knew that it was a different Metagross set, for example, where I would need another Calm Mind stack, then I would have gotten one there. I still would have been fine as long as I didn't get crit by the Swampert, but I decreased my opponent's opportunity to find an out there. So that's an important thing to know when you're playing. All right, B-Hole. I don't know if he would consider me a friend, but I consider him a friend, at least insofar as he's a cool guy in the Mushi League Discord. Shoutouts to B-Hole. Famously, he is allergic to the Pokemon Skarmory and also the Pokemon Blissey, so he chose one of the formats where Skarm Bliss is the most prominent to play. That makes a lot of sense to me, but because he's B-Hole, I know he's not going to run those Pokemon, so we'll see if I take advantage of that at any case. When I have lead Focus Punch Tyranitar against Zapdos, I pretty much always click Focus Punch because Zapdos pretty much always switches out. I do get a Salamence switch in, which is kind of interesting. And he's going to stay in and click Brick Break, which is a little bit of an interesting maneuver. I can't recall whether this is mixed or like attack invested damage. I think it is attack invested damage. If it is, it does have a chance to kill my Tyranitar, but I also have a chance to kill him with Rock Slide should it not kill. So it's kind of an interesting situation there. But Starmie was a fine switch in regardless. And I'm going to double to Skarmory because I assume that he's not going to stay in and eat an Ice Beam with Salamence. So that finds an opportunity to get a Spike down, which is really nice. No reason to get the second Spike down against Camerupt here, so I'm going to pivot into Flygon, who should take a Fire Blast decently well. And I'm going to go for Substitute as B-Hole goes for Explosion. So yeah, that's kind of funny there. Camerupt very commonly likes to run the item Quick Claw, which gives it a 20% chance to act first in the priority bracket. I'm going to assume that is what B-Hole was running there, because why would you try to boom into Flygon, which could kill you with Earthquake anyway? If you didn't have that, but I was willing to make that risk there, and I go for Substitute. Now, the reason why I go Substitute and not Earthquake, if my opponent switches to Zapdos, which could have HP Ice, or Salamence, which gets the Intimidate, should live a follow-up Rock Slide at -1, and could potentially have Dragon Claw to kill my Flygon. Like, it would be bad for me to click Earthquake in that spot. But Substitute would be plenty fine to click in that spot because it affords me the opportunity to get a Toxic on either of the flyers there. And should Beehole be going for Explosion with his Camerupt, then worst case scenario, I take 25... Well, worst case scenario, he gets the Quick Claw proc. But assuming that doesn't happen, I take 25% on Flygon for a substitute to remove the entire Camerupt. So I think that's a worthwhile trade, especially because I'm getting leftovers chip healing. And my opponent will reveal Suicune, who gets a critical hit Ice Beam onto my Skarmory, which kind of sucks, but that's okay because I can still live the follow-up Surf and get the Thief off. Now Suicune is going to slowly die to Sandstorm here. And now I can get Jirachi in, who is going to be really, really good into a Suicune, especially one that doesn't have leftovers anymore. And I'm going to get my my stack there. I go for a Fire Punch there because I should outspeed and live an Earthquake. Beehole is going to go for a Agility so that he can outspeed my Jirachi and then get the Earthquake off. That does make some sense there. It gives him actually a really good chance to find a game-winning critical hit on Jirachi. Because if he crits me with +2 speed, then I don't have a Pokemon that can outspeed that. And he can boom to get another kill. So we could go 2 for 1 with his Metagross if he got lucky there. Versus if he instead went for Earthquake immediately instead of getting the Agility. If he crits my Jirachi, well, that sucks. But I can switch into a Pokemon that outspeeds like Flygon or Starmie and win the game from there, basically. But fortunately for me, I don't get critically hit, so that's gonna pretty much increase my chances to win here. I'm not gonna stay in versus the Zapdos because I don't usually live a Thunderbolt, which allowed me to get my Flygon in for basically free. And then I'm going to double to Tyranitar in case he has fast HP Ice on his Zapdos. But given that he switched there, it indicates to me that he probably doesn't. But Tyranitar was a fine switch into the Salamence because it kind of forces it to click Brick Break as I can go back to Starmie here. Suicune is going to come in as I go for Ice Beam. But Suicune's not really a problem for my Starmie here. I'm going to go for Hydro Pump. Well, for 1, because I don't have Thunderbolt. And for 2, it would do enough damage to Zapdos and could be really good into the Unrevealed if it was something that could switch into Thunderbolt. Unfortunately, I miss. But I am going to take my Ice Beam here just to try to get the kill. Or, sorry, just to try to get some damage on Zapdos. But Beehole goes for a Substitute. My thought process here is I was fine to lose my Starmie because then I can get my Flygon in, which I'm pretty sure is faster, right? Is that... let's go back a few turns. When was my Flygon in versus Zapdos? Actually, we don't know if it's faster, but I'm assuming that I have the faster Flygon here. So I just needed to get it into range of Rock Slide, in case it was a HP invested Zapdos, which it probably is because it has Substitute. And we're gonna lose our Starmie here, but we've broken the Zapdos. See, I'm using Starmie as a breaker here. And that allows my Flygon essentially to pick up the kill. Rock Slide comes down and critically hits the Salamence, which is awesome. Beehole saying Fly Goat indeed, as I said Fly Goat earlier in the match, right? Earthquake is enough to kill the Suicune off. And Fly Goat is just gonna break the Tyranitar for me here. My thought process is that if this Tyranitar is Dragon Dance, I want to put it in range so that it will die to my Tyranitar going for either Hidden Power Bug or Earthquake, so that it can't get the +2. And if it's not Dragon Dance Tyranitar, then well, Jirachi will just win anyway. I do get flinched and then Double Edge will kill me, which kind of sucks. But with Dragon Dance, Rock Slide, Double Edge revealed, your last move cannot be Brick Break. That would be a crazy set. So I can go to my Tyranitar, which has the HP investment to live that +1 Earthquake. And now I can just kind of win the game from here. I'll go for Focus Punch. Okay, so thought being, if the Zapdos goes for a status move like Toxic or Thunder Wave, Focus Punch is more likely to hit than Rock Slide is. So no reason to risk a potential game winner on going for the 90% accurate move. Just click the 100% accurate move. And then we have Jirachi, which I say in the chat, does it live? And yes, it does. That's kind of sick. So there you go. These mid special attack investment Zapdoses here, sometimes they don't kill that Jirachi from 42%. So there's an argument for why maybe you do want to run a lot of HP investment on your Super Rachi. If I was running a Super Rachi that didn't have HP investment, possibly I die there. Now, granted, possibly I have speed there if I had more speed investment. So there's the counter argument. And also, I had Gengar, which was a guaranteed win anyway. But it's funnier to win with the Jirachi and to not reveal the last. You know, maybe I play B-Hole again, and he sees like, oh, it's this guy's team, but I don't know what his last is. I mean, no, that doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it's a ladder. Come on, like we're not. we don't have to keep our secrets so cloistered. Shoutouts to Cloister, by the way. Yeah, it makes it for a better video when Jirachi is the Pokemon that is winning every single game here. I believe it was the last Pokemon and got the last kill in all of the games we played so far. We'll see if that streak continues. T-Hawk. T-Hawk, he's a very polite person. Always has nice things to say in Revival Discord, as well as in the YouTube comments of the Revival commentaries. So shoutouts to T-Hawk. No T-Hawk slander here. But he's got Reggie Dwayne Johnson here, who's going to just straight up die to a Hydro Pump from my lead Starmie. So this is, in fact, the same team. It's just, in this game, I decided I wanted to lead Starmie instead of Tyranitar. The concept is similar. You're trying to stop a lead Tyranitar from getting a Dragon Dance against you. But at the cost of slightly worse matchups into other Pokemon, such as if it was, say, like a lead Zapdos. Fortunately, I find a Regirock who wants to stay in on Starmie for whatever reason, and does die to the Hydro Pump in one shot. Maybe T-Hawk thought that I was a defensive Starmie lead for some reason, or that I didn't have the balls to click turn 1 Hydro Pump. But, you know, if you're leading Starmie, you have to have the balls to click that move. I'm going to go to Flygon here, who's going to actually take a Toxic. So well played by T-Hawk to not allow a easy click from my Flygon there, or click to my Flygon there. And then he sequences this really well. He just calls me out on every move that I was going to click with the Flygon. I do stay into just Toxic, try to hit that Salamence, but yeah, now it's getting really bad. I Toxic again, hoping that he would switch. Instead, he gets a agility on my guy, which really sucks. But we can at least get our Skarmory in. Tried to get a Spike down. Unfortunately, we don't. Now we are up 2 Pokemon, but both our Flygon and our Skarmory are virtually dead here. I'm just gonna sack the Skarmory because I don't want to switch into Water Spout with anything. Thunderbolt coming down does 6-7%, which is funny. And I'm going to take a Hydro Pump for my troubles, and Big Chungus the Whale is going to go down. Wailord's a weird Pokemon. It's actually a pretty solid lead because it handles Tyranitar quite well, and it has a 150 base power water spout to click at the beginning of the game. But instead, Teok is choosing to have this in the back here, which is kind of interesting. But the combo of Water Spout, Hydro Pump, Self-Destruct is really, really powerful and often capable of getting you 1 or 2 kills in a game. So for an NU Pokemon, I believe it's NU ranked, it's actually pretty good in ADV. Maybe I should make a video about it one day, or maybe somebody else should make a video about it, huh? You know, maybe you should be the change that you want to see in the world for once, all right? I don't know why I said all that. But Gengar will get the kill on Wailord. I'm going to switch out of my Gengar here. Yes, I could have went for an Ice Punch to get damage on the Zapdos, but I kind of figure this is the last opportunity for this Flygon to get any sort of value. So I go for Toxic here as he reveals Lastmon Snorlax, which I guess makes sense on this style of team. But it doesn't happen to be an Immunity Snorlax. If it was an Immunity Snorlax, I am probably kicking myself there. But since it is Snorlax, I'm going to go straight to Tyranitar so I can get the Sand and try to limit the curses. You know, if I didn't think it was Curse Snorlax, otherwise I probably would have stayed in with Flygon and clicked some Earthquakes. As the Snorlax reveals Hidden Power Brian. Probably Bug? Maybe Steel? One of those two. Which doesn't... It's not good for my Tyranitar there. I switched to Flygon here because I was hoping that it would just kill me. But instead it goes for Rest, which is not great. And it has Snore. Snore is interesting because it stops Focus Punches from landing into the Snorlax. I do go for Focus Punch anyway, hoping maybe he would just not go for Snore. Because, like, maybe he's like, it's not even worth clicking it. Which is kind of dumb logic by me, frankly. But now I'm going to sack this Flygon off. And we are going to go to Gengar. And I could maybe land a Will-O-Wisp on this. And then taunt it so that it can't go for its Rest. But that Hidden Power is going to come down. And it is revealed to be neutral into Gengar. I believe the only Hidden Power that is reasonable that this could be now is HP Steel, which does crit my Tyranitar, which kind of sucks, but it is kind of good in a sense because I can reapply this taunt, which is gonna get this Snorlax pretty low. It's gonna force it to click a pretty underwhelming Hidden Power Steel into Jirachi should it stay in. So that gives me basically a free turn to get my Calm Mind up. My opponent goes to Zapdos, which has Thunder Wave as a very reasonable click into Jirachi, but I can't really do anything about it, so I have to just get my second Calm Mind here. I get Full Parad, which is not good. If this Salamence is Earthquake, I could maybe be in range of it, but I get a critical hit Psychic, which maybe mattered? I don't know. Depends on how much Spadef investment that Zapdos has, but if it wasn't Spadef invested, it probably didn't matter anyway. Salamence is going to click Dragon Dance, so good thing I switched my Starmie in here, which does live a Hidden Power Flying. Doesn't always live a Double Edge, though, but I managed to not get hit with the roll there. So that's fortunate for me. My Jirachi should be favored to win this matchup here because even even like attack boosted, HP steal is not going to do that much damage into the Jirachi. Snore, funny enough, has a 30% flinch chance as well, so it kind of has this para flinch idea going on, which is gross. I have seen that used on Ref Jirachi before as like a poor man's Iron Head in ADV, but it's kind of funny. T-Hawk says that, in fact, he did make a YouTube video about this team, so go check out T-Hawk, which I did look him up. I did not find him because T-Hawk, I guess, is some, like, heavy metal band or something. I saw a lot of music when I was looking that up, so unfortunate, but yeah, if you can find this video somewhere, go check it out. This is a cool team, and he was in the 1600s with it, so I feel like he probably plays pretty well with it, so that's cool. But Jirachi managed to be the Pokemon that cleaned up in all 4 games today. Yes, I know that some of you are asking, well, I want to know what happens when the Pokemon doesn't do what its job is. Well, if you want to see that, play against a team that gets a spike down and then goes Dugtrio on your Jirachi. That's where Jirachi is not effective. Or against a Blissey, if you are not able to break the Blissey, then Jirachi kind of gets stonewalled and you'll lose. So that's maybe a reason why you might want to run that substitute Focus Punch Tyranitar. Definitely helps you out versus Blissey, but BKC Tar definitely has its place as well and is slightly better for some of the other matchups. Sometimes having that Earthquake coverage can make a lot of difference, particularly if you're facing an opposing Jirachi. But that has been it for this video. Quite on the long side. Sorry that I was yawning and kind of tired. I've been beat today. But that's gonna do it. My favorite Pokemon, Jirachi. Glad to have made a video on it. I guess technically the Doom Desire video was a Jirachi and ADV video, but stylized in a different sort of way. So my second Jirachi video, if you want to look at it that way. So we'll see you all for the next one.